Centuries ago, the Great Father promised a return to the Inner Sphere for his children. Many believed that we could only achieve this by conquering Terra in the Great Father's name, forcing the corrupt peoples of the successor states to see the truth of the way of the clans. I believe this was a hasty and misguided assumption. Destiny is within our grasp, and we have only to reach out and take it. We of Clan Ghost Bear have won many worlds from the Draconis Combine and the Free Rosselhog Republic through legitimate trials of possession. In return, we have administered these worlds fairly and instructed their peoples in the way of the clans. While our neighbors continue to skirmish for centimeters of land, we have cemented our position. As a result, losses to raids and civil disorder have been minimal, and our clan has prospered. I stand before you today to announce the Clan Ghost Bear has moved from the blighted tundras of the Kerensky cluster to the blessed pastures of the Inner Sphere. To the Ghost Bear Dominion, 39 worlds claimed by rightful conquest. This area will henceforth be considered clan territory, administered from a new Ghost Bear capital on Alashane. I urge the Grand Council and the Houses of the Inner Sphere to recognize our claim peacefully, to the mutual benefit of all. Challenges to this claim will be dealt with harshly, until none remain to raise a dissenting voice. The original Viking was a child of the 3060s, with heads filled with grand ideas of free love, ending the war, and trying out new psychedelic substances provided by your friendly neighborhood pharmacist. Wait, I'm sorry, what? Oh, 3060s. Oh, sorry. Never mind. A joint project between Comstar and the Free Rosselhog Republic, the Viking was a 90-ton fire support battle mech that crammed 2 LRM-20s and 2 LRM-15s, each with Artemis 4 fire control systems, into its frame along with 7 tons of ammunition. Unfortunately, due to the lack of substantial short-range protection, it was prone to being chased down, isolated due to its slow speed, and picked apart by lighter mechs. The biggest drawback for the design was the limitation of those Inner Sphere LRM systems that had a minimum range before the missiles would arm. It ended up being a huge investment at the time, and the end result really couldn't justify it, so the Viking never really took off. The units that were produced ended up in the Comguard armies or among the Rosselhog forces. There were attempts over the years to tweak the design, both with Aero 4 systems and SRMs, but they tended to be niche designs that would pigeonhole the mech even further. By the 3090s, the Vikings still remaining in service within the Rosselhog Dominion were in dire need of upgrades. Thankfully, the incorporation of clan technologies into the supply chains provided opportunities to directly address the original drawbacks of the mech. In those early years of the 3090s, Grumium Creations took on the challenge of making something from the Viking design. Originally, the plan was to just assemble an upgrade package for it, but as the project grew in scale and the changes more and more numerous, it became obvious that it would be less expensive to create a brand new design. Unfortunately, Grumium Creations was in severe financial trouble, and creating a new mech was way beyond their capabilities. They sold off the refits that had been carried out already on existing Vikings, and then sold the license to create the Viking 2C to Ark Royal Mechworks located in the Lyran Commonwealth. Remaining at 90 tons, and retaining a slightly updated version of the GC type endosteel, and utilizing the same General Motors 270 Fusion engine, the Viking 2C reflects the original attempt to perform a refit rather than a substantial overhaul. The primary differences are with the armor, weaponry, and weapons adjacent parts. While the original Viking had 15.5 tons of standard armor plating, the Viking 2C carries 31 tons of hardened armor. While numerically this results in the same number of armor points distributed across the mech, the hardened armor requires 2 points of damage to mark off each point on the record sheet. It also provides additional protection against armor-piercing ballistics, missiles, and taser weaponry. Through armor critical hit rolls also suffer from a -2 modifier. The drawback, besides weighing twice as much as standard armor, is that mechs which carry it suffer a +1 to all piloting skill rolls due to the armor's bulky nature. The design philosophy was apparently to deal with the weaknesses at close range through armor and weaponry rather than making the mech any faster than the 43 kilometers per hour. But that is what it is, so let's talk about that weaponry. Blessed with the clan tech upgrade to those LRM launchers, the Viking 2C is liberated from the peril of minimum ranges with a pair of Type 20 Great Bow long-range missile 20 launchers and 2 Type 16 long-range missile 15 launchers split between the right and left sides of the mech. The LRM launchers are all aided with Artemis 5 fire control systems, the 4 tons of LRM-20 ammunition is held in the right and left torsos, with the 3 tons of LRM-15 ammunition, all protected by Case 2 in order to prevent the whole dying in a massive conflagration thing. Also, adding them up, that's 70 LRMs fired per turn, consistently since the 11 double heat sinks can handle the generated heat. Before you get too excited, the average number of LRMs reaching their target on successful 2-hit rolls is 12 for the LRM-20s and 9 for the LRM-15s. Now, one of the benefits of that Artemis 5 fire control system, besides the -1 on your 2-hit rolls, is a +3 on your cluster hits table. So that's going to push up your average number of missiles from the Viking 2C reaching their targets at 16 and 12. Adding them up, you've got an average of 56 missiles per turn. That's not too shabby for a fire support mech. In case your Viking 2C with a top speed of 4 hex is running is chased down, which is inevitable if things start to go south, the Mechwarrior has to rely upon that thick armor, a small variety of support weapons, and the ability to fire those LRMs at point-blank range. 2 ER micro lasers found in the left and right torsos can do damage out to 4 hexes, and 4 machine guns installed in the left and right legs can do their 2 damage out to 3 hexes. While these are good for clearing infantry and light vehicles, most of that threat continues to be from the long-range missile launchers. The 11 double heat sinks are adequate unless you're in panic mode and firing the ER micro lasers every turn. Of course, if you are doing that, a couple extra heat each turn is likely the least of your problems. By 3095, the first Viking 2Cs were being produced by Ark Royal, and joining the refit versions already distributed across the Rossalhog Dominion, Tumen, and the Lyran Commonwealth Armed Forces. The comfortable working relationship between Ark Royal Mechworks and Clan Wolf in Exile made the procurement of clan technology more consistent, though few Viking 2Cs were delivered to the Wolves due to the mech's tragically low top speed. While not considered a great mech among other clan mechs, the Viking 2C was an attractive prospect for a house army in need of fire support. In one of the more notable combat reports, the Viking 2C benefited from low expectations when combined soldiers from the 13th Sun Jiang cadre crashed up against the Rossalhog Dominion's 14th Provisional Garrison Cluster. A star of Viking 2Cs lumbered toward the 2 lances of the combined forces, but were dismissed as a serious threat by the combined commander who believed that they could quickly fall under fire. While the Viking 2Cs rained down missile fire onto the combined troops, they proved to be much more difficult to destroy with that hardened armor. With help from a reinforcing star of mechs, the Vikings ran their ammunition bins dry, slaying the retreating combined forces. During the defense of Tamarind in 3138, lances of Viking 2Cs were used by the Lyran Commonwealth forces in slow-rolling offensives that were able to so consistently place fire on the targets that they couldn't adequately respond in kind. The mech proved itself as an asset beyond merely static fire support in the hands of a savvy battlefield commander. Reports from the Rossalhog Dominion have been less than stellar. Some units within the Tumen have even considered being assigned to the Viking 2C a punishment. This dueling good and bad reputation could have a lot to do with the battlefield philosophies, rather than a genuine appraisal of the mech's capabilities. In addition to the no-arms design quirks, the Viking 2C has proved to be difficult to maintain, likely due to the large number of mixed Inner-Sphere and clan components and that hardened armor plating. To add a little bit of sweet and sour to the mix, the mech also has poor targeting at short range, as well as the improved targeting at long range quirks. All things considered, the Viking 2C is a fine fire support assault mech. It may feel a little out of place in the Dark Age Ill-Clan era clan forces because of their shift in battlefield doctrines toward a more aggressive and swift Tumen. However, among those house armies or forces on the defense, the consistent fire that Viking can produce is worth considering. Being comparatively new, the Viking 2C doesn't have any official variants, though I'm going to take a crack at it with a Mechfrog version. In the interest of maintaining the aesthetic, I'm going to go ahead and leave the hardened armor as is. Upgrading the engine to a Clan XL is a good first step, but I'm not going to make the mech any faster. If we're going to be a plodding fire support mech, let's go all in. Our next step is to boost the heat sinks to 13 double, which will be useful later. Being an Ill-Clan era refit, we're going to go ahead and rip out those LRMs and replace them with 4 advanced tactical missile 9 launchers. This makes the mech a little less deadly at extreme ranges, but absolutely terrifying at short and medium ranges. So let's do the math. 4 times 9 is 36, and at close range that'd be 3 damage per missile, so 36 times 3 is 108 possible damage. With standard missiles, we're looking at 72 possible damage, still quite scary. The 10 tons of ammunition dedicated to the ATM launchers would be tailored to your mission needs, though my default provides 28 shots for standard ammunition, 28 for extended range, and 14 high explosive. To tackle close-range threats from infantry and battle armor, the Viking 2C MF carries 4 AP Gauss rifles and a standard clan medium pulse laser in the arm. Now the mech is heat neutral while firing the ATMs, but if you full alpha strike with the medium pulse laser and the AP Gauss rifles, you're going to be looking at 8 heat into the red at the end of the turn. I think the Viking 2C MF would be a lovely addition to a Lance or Star of the standard loadout. It would be a brutal wake-up call for any mech or infantry or vehicle who thought it could get in close for the kill. For some reason I wasn't able to sort out, Megamech didn't like my variant and it wouldn't load it into the game, so instead I built a Lance of 2 Viking 2Cs standard, a Marauder 2C, and a Conjurer facing off against a Stormcrow, Summoner, Shadowcat, Kit Fox, and Nova Cat. The long-range fight was a little rough, and it wasn't until I moved into the midfield with the 2 Vikings that they were able to put some fire on targets. The Marauder 2C was taken down first, followed by the Stormcrow on the other side. The major issue once the Marauder 2C was down was that the LRM sandpapered down the armor on the targets without getting very many criticals or kills. The Conjurer ended up being the MVP of the match with that large pulse laser and streak SRM2s, while the Vikings were able to rain down LRMs. All 4 other mechs ended up running from the battlefield when their armor was low. Unfortunately, the Conjurer was taken down by the Nova Cat's fire before it tucked tail and ran. It was a surprisingly fun game, even after the Marauder 2C was thumped down and I assumed that it was going to be a bloodbath. Have you had any experience with a Viking or the Viking 2C? If you've had luck with it, I'd love to know the circumstances. Thanks as always for coming by today and talking BattleTech. It's always a pleasure as we try to shine some limelight on some lesser known battle mechs that could use some love. If you felt it was worthwhile, hitting the various buttons such as like and subscribe provide some happy brain chemicals for your favorite mechanical frog. Going the extra step to becoming a channel member is even more impactful. You can even come join us on Discord where we talk mechs, painting, video games, and copy-paste memes like they're going out of style. So until we meet again, take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.